Three, two, one. Hey everyone, thanks for stopping by the movie Hangout. We're at the Joe Bob Briggs Last Drive-In Week 3 recap. That's what this video is about. Before I get to it, before I get to the awesome movies, this week was the best week by far. The other ones are fantastic. This one is even better. But before I get to that, if you could just go down and click subscribe, comment, like, I would really appreciate it. Okay, so let's jump into it. I'm here on the Joe Bob Briggs Twitter page. Now this thing has gotten so much more active since they revived basically it's Monster Vision, but they call it The Last Drive-In on Shudder. And Joe Bob is just posting stuff left and right. He's at over 50,000 followers right now. Now I started following him. He had like 13,000. And he actually direct messaged me back, which was super cool. And I told him, like, Joe Bob, you gotta somehow revive Monster Vision. Well, a year and a half, 2 years later, we're at it. We're at it right now, and it is fantastic. So for this past week, there are two movies that Joe Bob showed. One is called Brain Damage. It is the most bizarre movie that you will ever see. It was directed by the same guy who did the cult classic movie uh, Basket Case and Frankenhooker. Yeah, Frankenhooker. And then the other one is an Italian film called Deep Red. So let's go to the first one. The first one is Brain Damage. Get it right here. Now, Brain Damage came out in 1988. Comedy horror film by Frank Hellenlotter. And Frank Hellenlotter is the guy that did Basket Case here. Just a really nutty guy. Basically, the plot of this movie, and it is the craziest plot, but I think it's executed perfectly, is there's this young guy named Brian. Brian begins an unwilling symbiotic relationship with a malevolent leech-like brain-eating parasite called Almer. Almer. Yes, a leech-like brain-eating parasite. So this thing basically like hooks to the back of your neck and sucks people's brains out. Alimer, the alien leech thing, secretes a highly addictive hallucinogenic blue fluid into Brian's brain. In return for a steady supply of the fluid, Brian must seek out human victims of Alimer so that he can eat their brains, all the while, though, as Brian adopts a heavily secluded life in his indulgence of Alimar's fluids. It begins to draw a rift between his relationship with his girlfriend, Barbara, and his brother Mike. I mean, this movie is so bizarre. Let me show you what this alien looks like. This is what the alien looks like. Look at this guy. He's like this slug, kind of looks like a turd thing. He has little baby blue eyes, and he has a big mouth. And he like has like a weird like refined accent when he talks to the kid. It's so strange. And then when he opens his mouth to latch on to somebody, he looks like this. Pretty terrifying. And that's the blue liquid right there that gets injected in the back of your neck, into your brain. It is just, it's the most bizarre thing I've ever seen, I think. And then people even made like a really cool GIF. I guess they're called GIFs or GIFs. Here's Joe Bob, Brain Damage, the lightning, and then there's Alimer right there, injecting it in the back of Joe Bob. I just think this is so hilarious. Really, really talented what this person did. But yeah, I would have to say this particular horror film, Brain Damage, just on the fact that it's so creative, the puppetry for this alien slug thing that injects drugs in the kid's brain, it was really good. Like I was expecting it to be horrible, like some lame puppet thing. It was good. It looked really believable, like it was a real thing. And I thought the story was good, the writing. Honestly, I would give this movie, if you're into really bizarre, gross, weird horror films, I would give Brain Damage a 7.5, 8 out of 10. And I can't believe I'm even saying that because I figured it was going to be like a 2 or a 3 out of 10. 7 to 8 out of 10. I would probably watch it again. And once I watched it, I realized there's so many memes on the internet from this movie. It's hilarious. Okay, so the second one we're going to get to is this movie by famed Italian director Dario Argento, and the name of this movie is Deep Red. Now, this was totally different than Brain Damage. Brain Damage is like this weird dark comedy, a lot of gore type of thing. Deep Red is the opposite. Deep Red is an Italian murder mystery. There's very little gore, but the soundtrack is so amazing. In a lot of horror films, if you turned the sound off, the scene you're watching wouldn't be that scary. This is one of those examples. Like now, the visuals are creepy, but the soundtrack just scares the crap out of you, seriously. And I believe this soundtrack won several awards, and it's well deserved because when you watch this, you will completely understand what I'm talking about. It's just the orchestral arrangements, the tempo, it gets your heart racing. Gives you like anxiety in a lot of these moments where there's a lot of tension and stuff. It's absolutely fantastic. So basically, the plot, and this is kind of long, so I'm just going to kind of summarize it for you. Basically, there's a murder, and a man who is an investigator, he's trying to figure out like who did this murder, and there is like basically a serial killer. So there are several murders happening, and in every murder, there are elements to them that are similar. Like there's a weird like child nursery rhyme that is being played that people can hear before they get killed. Like once a killer breaks in, the killer plays that, and then so that's one thing that's really bizarre. Another thing is like there's like a little like a baby doll that's like hung from a noose inside of a lot of the homes of people that were murdered. The people are killed in similar ways. I mean, there's just so many little puzzle pieces to this story that by the end of it, you will realize, and I'm not gonna be a spoiler alert, but when you watch this movie and it's so perfectly put together, at the end of the movie, when the credits roll, you will have realized that potentially you could have solved the entire mystery within the first 10 minutes of the movie if you had only been able to really focus in on all the puzzle pieces. And that's why it's a testament to this phenomenal film. I mean, it really is absolutely amazing. And I would 100% watch this again. There are other movies made by this famous Italian director that I'm definitely going to be watching. One of them is Suspiria, and the other one is Inferno. And basically, Deep Red, Suspiria, and Inferno are basically a part of what the director calls the Three Mothers. So it's a trilogy. The other two, Suspiria and Inferno, are kind of like supernatural. They have like black magic, witches in them, which I'm really interested in seeing, especially as we go through the summer months and into Halloween. And I'll probably do some analysis of those movies around Halloween time. But I would honestly, Deep Red, fantastic. The commentary by Joe Bob for this episode was absolutely amazing. Joe Bob is an anomaly in that he's a guy from deep Texas, loves country, but he knows he gets European filmmaking. He knows the most obscure Italian filmmaker, the most obscure German, French filmmaker. So you're getting like a PhD in filmmaking when you're watching Joe Bob. Absolutely amazing. I would give Deep Red a 9 out of 10, maybe a 9.5 out of 10. It is one of the best mystery horror movies I've ever seen. It is creepy. It is scary. There's not a ton of blood. And when there's not a ton of blood and it's scary, you've got to give all the credit to the filmmaker and the writer. It is absolutely fantastic. So I would give this a 9 to a 9.5 out of 10. Next week, this coming Friday, I am super stoked. We got the one and only Lloyd Kaufman, who is the creator of all the Trauma movies. So I can only speculate what Joe Bob is going to be showing from that. I don't know if he's going to be showing Poltergeist, War, the Toxic Avenger, I have no idea, but it'll definitely be interesting. Well, thanks for watching, and if you want to get future rants, reviews, or original content, click subscribe. Later.